Thank you for coming to watch Dr. Smith's video today. We encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the alert button. That way you can get notifications when he uploads a new video. Thank you for coming today.
So we hope you take the time to hear and think about it. And if you have a book, read in the book about the concept and the topics that we talk about. They have a lasting effect. The intent is not necessarily to treat pain, but to make permanent, long-term correction with your whole family and your friends.
Thank you. Make sure you subscribe and hit the alert button. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
It's off the wall question, but has to do with the gut from last week's lesson.
Yep.
And when they find a polyp, I understand that's a precancerous condition, and if they find it, they can remove it, etc. So is there a chance that it would become cancerous within the next, say, if you don't go back for 10 years for a colonoscopy or whatever, become cancerous in that length of time? Is that what they...
If they don't take it off?
Mm-hmm. If by chance you just miss it and don't go and you have it, and about how long does it take to, depends on, do they all turn cancerous, or is it just determined by your body and how you live it?
That's the answer to the question. If you can have polyps, you can have colitis, you can have diverticulitis, you can have a lot of things wrong in the colon. That doesn't mean you're going to get cancer. It means the tissue is compensated, the tissue is in trouble. And if the body chemistry is then bad and you have low energy, then you're at higher risk for cancer.
So low energy is also a symptom of something wrong with the way you're eating, or that you're doing something that causes your body to be fatigued.
Think of the whole triangle. Low energy could be, and in my opinion, is always a combination of multiple, I call them triggers, multiple holes in the bucket that drain the energy out. It could be as simple as worrying about something. It can be as simple as having had a bad experience and you think about it a lot. It could be not enough water. It could be not enough sleep.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to use the concept of the bucket, and both the quality of the bucket and the fullness of the bucket. And the goal always is to fill it up. When I originally thought about writing my book, I was going to title it "How to Build a Better Bucket."
Oh.
And that is better than that. That was a good question. Now, I think I responded to you making a comment about polyps earlier, and said that we're all precancerous. A lot of people get mentally overloaded, rightfully so, because they're deceived when they're told by a medical doctor or anybody, you're pre-diabetic. Oh, well, if you don't have it, we're all pre-diabetic. We're all pre-Parkinson's. We're all, if we don't have it, we're pre. We want to be a pre. Okay?
And stay there.
We want to stay there. And if you start to have conditions that correlate with the symptoms of any disease, you do well if you adjust your lifestyle such that you act like you have it. In other words, you do the same thing to prevent it as you do if you have it. But if you have it, you then increase the frequency and the intensity of the therapy that you would use to prevent it. If you get it, you just have to do more of the same more often. That's why I tell you to don't go off and on. You know, don't do and stop and do and stop and do and stop. Try to establish a routine in your life. We call it daily activities for a living. So you get into a routine of doing the things that you need to do to stay healthy. Back in practice, a lot of people would wait till they got a symptom and come in and get treated and then go away, and they get a symptom and come back and they go away. And when I very first got into practice, I practiced in Logan, Utah. I moved into Logan. There was one chiropractor, Dr. Astle. Dr. Astle had been there for a long time. A lot of people loved him, a lot of people went to him, but I was a new guy in town. So when I showed up, a lot of the old people who had been under his care wanted to check out the new guy. I was shocked because what I found is this. First of all, back in college, they said chiropractic helps sick people get well. I believe that. I understood the science, the art, the whole deal. But most of those people who came to check me out, when they took their history, they had the same problem today that they did 20 years ago. So I scratched my head and think, oh gosh, maybe chiropractic doesn't get sick people well. But what they were doing with him, same thing. Treat a symptom, go away. Treat a symptom, go away. Treat a symptom, go away. So he truthfully slowed down the degeneration process, but they didn't get enough home therapy, repetitive microtherapy, to maintain whatever he did. And that's why I got away from and never did use what I call the Rackham Crackham technique, because that's what he did. He moved the bones, I like to hear him click, and he made adjustments, and I think he did a good job adjusting people, but they were not educated. They didn't know enough to make changes in their life. So that's critical.
When you go to the grocery store, there's this aisle of water. It's just full of all kinds of water and varieties. And so I know tap water's good. What about things that say, like, for example, carbonated mineral water? I mean, should you avoid or recommend anything? Just curious.
If you're going to buy water, carbonated mineral water is not on the top of your list.
Okay.
You can, but don't drink a lot of it.
No, I'm without thought for a moment.
Yeah.
I had a question. You know, when you talked about taping,
About what?
taping, you know, you had that tape and you put it on your joints and
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, so if the problem is on the outside, do you put the tape on the outside or do you put the tape on the inside, or how does that work?
Okay, that's a good question. When you say problem, does that mean pain?
No, it means that's where it's worn out. That's where it's rubbing. So yeah, it means pain, yeah.
The idea of the tape is to, number one, stimulate the nervous system so that you help the muscles do what they normally should do to put joints back into alignment. The kinesio tape, the stretchy stuff, that's what you're talking about. that does not have enough power to modify a misalignment on its own. I'm going to talk about that a little more because you have that question. Do any of you currently tape? I did a class last year, and I'll do another one on how to tape. But the idea is to facilitate or help the body do what it's trying to do by stimulating the nervous system to shorten muscles. When you shorten muscles, you tighten them. So the real question I would ask is, what condition is the joint in? Now, when I look at your leg from here right now, I would probably put the tape on the inside to pull the leg straighter. Right now,
Because it goes like this.
right now your knee bends in, the leg goes out, so we need to
Put the tape here.
help the body to pull it back in.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason it's rubbing on the outside is because that is bent that way. So we bend it that way.
Thanks.
If you use the tape, rule number one, try to help the body do what it needs to do
Okay.
through the joint or the muscle. If you have a long muscles are usually the ones that are painful. Long muscles are painful because they've been stretched. And when they're stretched, they're weak. So if you have a painful long muscle, you put the tape on to stimulate shortening. When you shorten a muscle, you strengthen it. And usually when you shorten the muscle and strengthen it, you subtract pain. Now, when you use the tape, the stretchy tape, if you take all the stretch out and put it on, you've defeated the purpose. It's designed to assist, to facilitate, to stimulate the nervous system. So when you put the tape on, you attach the end and take half of the stretch out, as close as you can get. Maybe a little more, a little less, but try to get half, and then you stretch it and you apply it down, and when you get to the other end, about 1.5 to 2 inches, you take the top tape off and put that end down with no stretch. So you have no stretch on the ends, only in the middle.
Okay.
And that principle applies wherever you put it.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I like the tape. I use it quite a bit. A lot of people have the tape put on, and they say something's in the tape. It took the pain away. There's nothing in the tape. It's you help the body do what it's trying to do.
She was talking about, okay, so I need to get some shrooms and some digestion, but I'm taking the GI too,
Up to you. Yeah.
with all those in the flora. It's because I'm almost out of GI too, but I need,
I give you some today.
okay. Well, do I continue to take the GI with all the mothers?
Yeah. They all do different things.
Oh, I thought it was all for digestion.
No, well, up the GI helps strengthen the entire tract.
Okay,
Digestion is for the stomach, to help the stomach
yeah,
break the food down.
yeah. And the flora
The
is,
Flora Plus is for the small intestine to increase the number of friendly flora.
okay. All right,
all different.
so I need to get some GI then too, because I'm almost out of it. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a question for a dear friend of mine who's,
Sure.
a dear friend of mine, his little granddaughter
Yeah.
is, having a really hard time. She needs to settle down. She's very nervous. and
Hyper.
They gave her melatonin,
Yeah.
and I don't know,
And what?
they gave her melatonin, but
Yeah.
she's only 3. Is that something that would be good for a 3-year-old that needed to have some calming?
Apparently her doctor thought that would help
It
her.
wasn't a doctor, it was just her.
A lot of young parents are doing that nowadays, I've noticed, giving their children melatonin.
Yeah.
And you can buy it over the counter.
So that's my question, but anyway,
Okay.
melatonin.
So recently we've talked about glands.
Right,
Your body makes melatonin.
right.
Your body will make the needed melatonin for you based on your need.
Okay.
Now sometimes people don't want to sleep, they don't want to settle down. Sometimes have parents bring kids here that are very hyper.
Right.
And it's many times it's a lack of nourishment, basic fundamental nutrition, and basic fundamental discipline. We have a major problem with the young generation and parents who do not have the courage to discipline and teach appropriately. So they don't remember the fact that until 8 years old, the kids don't have a choice. When you become 8, you're old enough to make decisions and choose right or wrong and no good or bad. Up until then, you need to be on a leash of some kind, mentally and emotionally, verbally, and lots of times the leash is lengthened with technology, so they give the kid something to entertain them rather than take the time and the energy to help them. So back to your original question. I'm a big believer in trust in the body. If the parent doesn't trust in the body of the baby, the parent will give the baby a drug. I've treated many young people, babies, infants, kids under 8. The parent brought the child for care. I examined the child and said to the parent, I will only treat the child if I can treat you too. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the cause of the child's problem is the parent. And many times the parent can have any of the 3 major problems that we've talked about. Think of the triangle. Mom can have a mental, emotional overload. She has a pure heart, but she's overloaded. So she's not able to take care of the child. She may have some kind of a gastrointestinal problem that lowers her capacity, her ability to be a good parent. So she becomes a compromised parent, ending up with a compromised child. And then we treat the child with a medication which is only for symptoms, not cause. So back to your original question, we can get a child melatonin. No, they might, I wouldn't.
Okay.
That was a long answer. I gave long answers.
That was a long answer, and a lot of that circles back to inappropriate nutrition. A lot of what kids are fed is creating the hyperactivity and the attention deficit, and if they can get good solid nutrition, it self-corrects. But in the meantime, oftentimes they're lacking in nutrients. So something like the vitamin mineral combination or the natural vitality combination could support them in getting that nutrition that they're missing.
Correct. Something very inexpensive and very simple.
That's not just one thing pulled out like the melatonin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the idea is nurture. We have to nurture chemically the body. Now the brand that we use, Optimal Health, the first product they made was number one. That's digestion. Why? Because everybody needs digestion. Because most people consume too much food. You've heard me say that many, many times. The biggest problem is not bad food, it's too much food. Not that bad food is off the list, it isn't. There's a lot of bad food out there. And so when kids don't get adequate nourishment, they want more. And their brain is smart enough, the moms just know that if they give them something sweet, they get a quick fix. It's like freezing to death and throwing gasoline on the fire. Thank you, Kathy, thank you.
Is there something for a child that, you know, like a 3-year-old, I don't know if they could swallow something, but, or how
That's very simple. You take the complete nutrition powder, or you take the whole fruit and veg
oh, okay,
capsule and dump it out.
okay,
Pour it in a drink or on something that they eat.
right, okay. Thank you.
I had an endoscopy on the 7th of March.
Yep.
And I'm still having throat problems.
Yeah.
Hoarseness and coughing and.
Yeah.
Is there something to alleviate that or to heal my throat or to find out if it's okay?
Are you bleeding?
No?
Can you swallow?
Yeah.
Give it time. Give it time.
What about salt water?
So, okay,
Like a gargle.
Gargle.
I do fermented foods like sauerkraut and things like that for my gut, and that seems to help my esophagus. But
anything you do to alkalize the body will help. If you want to gargle with salt water and take something like that, the only value for that is it helps reduce the amount of bacterial spread. Salt kills bacteria. Salt also enhances, and we're going to talk about it today, salt enhances the DNA, strengthens the ability to react. Now you had that test done, so you had an injury.
yes, they took like 15 biopsies. So I've
That's
had
a
exposure to that.
tremendous injury. It'll take you quite a while for the tissue to remodel and repair and regenerate.
So Magnus stem would help. I take that.
Magnesium will help make new stem cells, will help every part of your body. Okay? Now that,
If it were me, I would also probably drink throat coat tea with a little bit of natural raw honey in it, just because it has marshmallow root. It will soothe it and make it feel better. It won't necessarily heal it, but it will help protect it and
Now, I
help
don't
soothe
have
it.
a sore throat per se, but it seems to be getting worse.
So is that echinacea you're talking about? The echinacea
No, it's called throat
for
coat.
throat coat?
It's a natural tea that you can buy called
Okay.
throat coat.
if the tissue is getting worse, then I would say, as a general rule, strengthen the immune system. And that's Flora Plus, small intestine,
She's got me on the whole version.
the gut with them. And you can also take, defense and chronic. If it's real bad, you can take acute. If it's real bad. So welcome to class. We're good? I'd like to see if there are any questions before we start.
I was wondering if you could tell me, I have my friend, whose little girl has anxiety. She's 3, her granddaughter, sometimes stutters. Do you know what causes stuttering?
Well, obviously it's different in different people.
She stuttered when she was put in daycare. And then they took her out of daycare and her grandma's taking care of her, and she stopped. But in certain situations, she stutters.
She probably had an emotional overload that short-circuited some patterns in her head. And obviously, with the lessening of stress, a different environment, like with her grandma, she is coming out of it. I would also say that usually when there's a problem with speech development or coordination of walking or crawling, there's generally a cranial misalignment big affecting the brain. So if I were to see her, I would check the head to make sure we have proper mobility and alignment of the cranial bones.
Okay.
And then at that age, it's hard to deal with the emotions other than move on and not allow the same kind of overload
Yeah,
to
okay.
occur. That's a good question.